Thank you so much. Thanks for that kind introduction. It's really great to be back again this year to welcome you to Capitol Hill. Thank you, Americans for the Arts. Thank you to all of you who are here to advocate for the arts today and to highlight the very, very important role that the arts play in our culture, in our society, and in our economy. So, as Robert was saying, last year I started the STEAM Caucus. I serve on both the Education Committee and the Science Committee. And I started that with Congressman Aaron Schock from Illinois. It's a bipartisan caucus. We're now up to 66 members, so we've just about tripled our membership since last year. Now, there are a lot of conversations here, especially on the Education Committee and the Science Committee, about STEM education, science, technology, engineering, and math. Very important indeed, but what is left out, what is lost if we're only focusing on science, technology, engineering, and math? So now we have STEAM, which integrates the arts and design, broadly defined, into STEM learning. Our focus over the past year has been primarily about the importance of arts education. We've had some great discussions, and I'm thrilled that so many of my colleagues are joining this caucus. But we're talking about how important it is, and Louise mentioned this as well, to educate both halves of the brain, especially when we're talking about the importance of creativity and innovation. How do we educate the next generation of creative thinkers and empathetic citizens? And I have to say that we do that through well-rounded education that includes the arts. Innovation is widely seen as a key to success in the 21st century economy. There's plenty of evidence that arts education really engenders that creative, critical thinking. So our next step is we're bringing industry and businesses on board because they see the value of an innovative workforce to be successful. You know, there are plenty of other benefits to students and to society. I recently had a teacher in my office from rural Oregon. He's a CTE, which is Career and Technical Education teacher, what we used to call shop class. But he runs a wood shop in his school, and his students had been working with a lathe, and they made these incredibly beautiful pens and bottle stoppers, and he was telling us about how happy his students were. They were really learning through that project, but they were also being creative, they were engaged, and I have to tell you that students need more opportunities to have this kind of creative expression, less high-stakes testing, more creative expression, because thank you. We want students who know how to answer questions, but we also want students who know the right questions to ask. And we're going to get that sort of intellectual curiosity by making sure that students especially, are engaged in the arts. And I have to tell you that artists, like scientists, think big, they take risks, they think ahead, they think outside the box. So there are a lot of parallels between art and science. So we're working on having that discussion to incorporate those and bring those together. I don't need to convince you of the importance of arts in our schools, in our culture. I have to say, I'm part of the city of Portland in my district, the district I'm honored to represent. And you may know that Portland is a city where the residents actually taxed themselves to fund arts education. Now, that says a lot about the city of Portland, but I have to say they shouldn't have to do that. We should have arts education in all of our schools, not just in the communities where people step up and tax themselves to pay for it. But I was also up in Scappoose, Oregon. Probably most of you have never been there. It was Scappoose, Oregon, in Columbia County, a rural part of my district. And we were touring schools last week, and the Scappoose High School just built a phenomenally beautiful state-of-the-art theater. And the residents of that community passed a bond to build that theater. And you talk about the life-changing experiences that students are going to have when they get on that stage, perform, and have that opportunity for creative expression. So it's the rural areas as well where people are getting the message of how this is important. So I'm going to tell you a story and pose a question to you. I had a roundtable discussion for leaders in the arts last week in the Portland area. We had museum directors and art college presidents and theater groups and the Oregon Symphony and a whole range of people around the table. We also had with us somebody who was the chief technological officer of Kickstarter. He was one of the original Kickstarter, and that's the platform that funds creative projects through crowdsourcing. And I have to tell you, he made a comment. He said, I kind of feel like a tourist in this room. He said, I appreciate the concern for traditional funding of the arts, but then he noted what Kickstarter has done. Since it started in 2009, they fund more than $1 billion of creative projects from more than 5.7 million donors. They funded more than 100,000 projects. So we could have a discussion about whether every creative project is art, but I think you have some advocacy to do, and that would take a long time. But I bring that up because he said there is an artistic renaissance happening in spite of government support, and you heard Jim Moran talk about the cuts that have been made. But I appreciate his comment, but I want to say that there is a role for public funding of the arts. We absolutely must continue and increase that public funding. But we also have to have policies that do not inhibit creativity and in other ways support the arts. And those are things like copyright laws, tax policies that encourage charitable giving. All of those things are important too. So in addition to creating opportunities through funding, we also have to make sure that our policies are not creating barriers for artists and creative expression. So as you continue to advocate for the arts today, let's ask, how is our advocacy evolving to meet the needs of all artists? Are we supporting the modern tech-savvy entrepreneurial artists? Are we supporting artists in rural areas? Are we supporting artists in mediums that don't necessarily translate neatly into online platforms? So let's make sure we're having a broad conversation of all of the arts and creativity throughout all of this great country. And I look forward to continuing to discuss these issues with you as you advocate today on the Hill. Please encourage whomever you're speaking with, if they aren't already a member of the STEAM Caucus, please invite them to join. I'd like to announce to you next year when you're back that we've tripled our membership again. So thank you so much for being here. Thank you for your support of the arts. Thank you for all you do.